This is Franklin Williams, a man convicted of multiple felonies, is a notorious figure in Cleveland, Ohio. His criminal activities included a series of armed robberies followed by a dramatic police chase that ended with his capture. During his trial, Williams became infamous not just for his crimes, but for his outbursts in court. Despite numerous warnings, he continued to speak over the judge.
Again, I'm going to interrupt. Mr. Williams, listen to me. I'm going to gag you in 1 second.
Do not let me.
That means zip it right now.
You trying to?
Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't. That's a violation of the HIPAA law, Judge.
If you spit on, attempt to bite, or injure any of my deputies, you're going to have a bad day.
That's what it is.
Claiming violations of his rights, including falsely citing the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, to defend his case. This behavior led to an extraordinary event. The judge ordered Williams' mouth to be duct taped to prevent further disruptions. Williams's erratic behavior didn't end there. In a subsequent court appearance, he continued to express his dissatisfaction with his treatment, claiming his right to free speech was violated. His initial sentence of 24 years was overturned due to the inappropriate conduct of the court. A new judge was appointed, and Williams ultimately received a harsher 33-year sentence. His case became a controversial example of courtroom decorum and the balance between fair trial rights and maintaining order in court. Camilla Gant. Camilla Gant was charged with the brutal murder of her boyfriend in Jackson, Mississippi. The crime stemmed from a heated argument that escalated into violence, ultimately resulting in her boyfriend's death by stabbing. Gant's defense revolved around claims of self-defense, asserting that her boyfriend had been attacking her.
The way I was portrayed, mostly everything was lies. There was a little bit of truth, but mostly I was convicted off of lies.
You're gonna shut your mouth or I'm gonna have some duct tape put on it. You stab, you stab, you stab, you stab until he was dead. I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
However, the severity of the injuries and the nature of the attack undermined her defense. The jury found her guilty of first-degree murder. In court, Gant showed little remorse, frequently interrupting the judge during sentencing. The judge, visibly frustrated, made a powerful statement, condemning her for the relentless stabbing and stating that, if the state allowed, she would have been sentenced to death. In the end, Gant received a life sentence without the possibility of parole, cementing her fate behind bars for the rest of her life. Kimberly Kessler. Kimberly Kessler's case is one of deception, manipulation, and a chilling murder. Kessler, who had been on the run for 25 years under various aliases, was working at a hair salon in Nassau County, Florida, when she killed her co-worker, Jolene Cummings.
Are we on mute anyway, so I can say whatever the I want?
We're not on mute.
Oh, okay.
Jordan Beard is Jolene Cummings' cousin.
Using scissors as her weapon, Kessler brutally murdered Cummings and attempted to dispose of the body. Kessler's past came to light after her arrest, revealing a long history of running from the law and living under different identities across multiple states. Her behavior during trial was erratic, with frequent outbursts and disturbing actions while in jail, including smearing feces on herself and her cell walls. She falsely claimed that her public defender was related to the victim and repeatedly disrupted court proceedings. Despite her attempts to derail the trial, Kessler was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her case stands as a stark reminder of how a life lived in deceit can spiral into horrific violence. Kyra Cook. Kyra Cook's involvement in a carjacking plot gone wrong led to her arrest and conviction in Volusia County, Florida. At the age of 18, Cook and her 17-year-old boyfriend used a dating app to lure their victim into a dangerous situation where the boyfriend shot and severely injured the man during a robbery attempt. Just 2 days later, the pair tried to carry out another carjacking, but were apprehended by police.
Keeps you guilty of all 3 charges, sentence you to 20 years in state prison.
During her trial, Cook stood trial for her role in the crime, despite the belief by her and her family that she wouldn't face significant prison time due to an apparent miscommunication with her public defender. Her mother's emotional outburst in court highlighted the family's shock when Cook was sentenced to 20 years in prison. However, her sentence was later reduced to 11 years due to her age and circumstances surrounding the crime. Her case sheds light on the impact of youth, poor decision-making, and the harsh realities of the legal system for young offenders. Jacob Morgan. Jacob Morgan was just 17 years old when he was charged with setting a fire that killed his 14-month-old stepbrother in Rock Hill, South Carolina. The tragic case attracted significant attention due to the age of the suspect and the victim, and the fact that Morgan was reportedly left in charge of the child when the fire broke out.
Therefore, I am going to find that there is probable cause to charge the individual for General Sessions Court for both charges.
Prosecutors argued that Morgan had intentionally set the fire, though Morgan maintained his innocence, stating he loved his brother deeply and would never harm him. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Morgan accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to involuntary manslaughter and unlawful neglect of a child. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, though his conviction continued to haunt him as he expressed ongoing grief and sorrow for his brother's death. After serving only 7 years, Morgan was released, but his case remains a tragic example of how a single moment can irreparably change lives. Ignacio Rodriguez. Ignacio Rodriguez faced one of the most harrowing charges of all, the death of his 4-month-old son. In San Antonio, Texas, his infant child suffered a fractured skull and severe brain injuries, leading to his tragic death. Rodriguez became the lead suspect in the investigation, and prosecutors argued that he had caused the fatal injuries.
Mr. Rodriguez, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty.
Rodriguez eventually pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of intentionally causing serious bodily injury to a child. In court, he showed little emotion as he was sentenced to 50 years in prison.
I hate more than anything what you did to our son, and for that I can never see myself forgiving you. You were supposed to be our protector, not the one to break our heart.
During sentencing, the child's mother delivered a heartbreaking statement expressing her hatred for Rodriguez and her inability to forgive him for what he had done. Rodriguez, in response, urged her to tell the truth to their surviving child as she grew older, hinting at a possible alternative version of events. Nevertheless, he now serves his sentence, reflecting on the tragic loss of his son and the shattered lives left in its wake.